In his State of the Union address on January 22nd, President Obama said, "Our diplomacy is at work with respect to Iran, where for the first time in a decade, we've halted the progress of its nuclear program and reduced its stockpile, or reduced its nuclear stockpile." I worked on this issue for the CIA, the State Department, the House Intelligence Committee, and for the Center. And I can tell you that this statement isn't even close to being true. I responded by writing an article for National Review Online entitled, "Obama Straight Up Lied About Iran's Nukes Tonight. Their Progress Hasn't Been Halted." And this piece included this chart here. And it illustrates that far from freezing Iran's nuclear program, far from stopping Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons, Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium has skyrocketed since 2009. The number of weapons Iran can make out of its enriched uranium has grown from 0 when the president entered office to at least 8 today. Now, let me explain to you how we came to these conclusions. Iran has stopped enriching uranium to the 20% uranium-235 level. And the administration has said that's a great achievement. It isn't. Iran is still enriching uranium to the reactor grade. It only takes 2 weeks longer to make weapons-grade uranium from reactor-grade uranium than if you start with 20% enriched uranium. Now, this chart shows the surge in reactor-grade uranium. The red line is what we're counting on available low-enriched uranium at the reactor grade that the Iranians could make weapons out of. Iran could make a weapon out of its enriched uranium at the reactor grade in 2.2 to 3.5 months right now. Now, there's an interesting thing about this chart. I ran this on National Review, got a lot of response for it. But the next day, something unusual happened, something I don't think has ever happened for the Center for Security Policy. The Washington Post fact checker column used our chart to fact check the president. And I have a copy of this piece at the back. It's by Glenn Kessler, and the title is, "Obama's Claim That Iran's Nuclear Program Has Been Halted and Its Nuclear Stockpile Reduced." Well, Mr. Kessler awarded the president 3 out of 5 Pinocchios for making inaccurate statements about the Iranian nuclear program. And he included our chart, which I said was sort of stunning for the Center for Security Policy. But there's a twist on this that's interesting. Mr. Kessler, who I've worked in the past, he's a good journalist, consulted with 2 arms control experts, and they grudgingly said our chart was basically right, but they thought it had some technical differences. One of the people with whom Mr. Kessler consulted was a guy named Ali Hanonen. Hanonen is a former IAEA nuclear inspector. He's now teaching at the Harvard JFK School, and I consulted with him on this chart. Mr. Hanonen looked at the data, and he said, well, it seems to be right, but frankly, Iran could make more weapons. Basically, Hanonen said, our figures were on the low side. We said 8 nuclear weapons right now. Hanonen, who worked for the IAEA, told the Washington Post Iran could make more than 8 weapons right now with its enriched uranium stockpile enriched at the reactor grade level. Now, I used figures on the low side because I didn't want the center to be accused of pushing the envelope or exaggerating this threat. It also confirms, frankly, what the president is saying about the nuclear talks and Iran's nuclear program simply aren't true. As Claire said, the talks have conceded to Iran the right to enrich uranium. We're not going to force Iran to stop enriching, to give up uranium centrifuges, to give up its stockpile of enriched uranium, to stop building the Iraq heavy water reactor, which will be a source of plutonium. During the nuclear talks, Iran has not cooperated with the IAEA. There are still facilities it will not let the IAEA into. According to the administration, there must be robust IAEA efforts to confirm this deal, to verify it for it to work. Well, if Iran isn't allowing that during the talks, how can we expect Iran to cooperate with an agreement after it's signed? There's a facility right now called Parchin where Iran supposedly has done explosive testing to develop nuclear warheads. Not only will Iran not let the IAEA inspectors go there, it is involved in a cover-up to hide evidence. It's changed the soil, it's painted and washed down buildings to hide evidence of efforts it's made to develop nuclear warheads, explosive testing at this facility. This administration has no intention of stopping Iran's pursuit of a nuclear weapon. I believe they're siding with experts from the Brookings Foundation, from Columbia University and Georgetown University in saying we can live with a nuclear Iran. The purpose of these talks is not to stop Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons, it is to contain it. The president has decided to give Iran the bomb, to acknowledge Iran the bomb, because he wants a deal so desperately, in the belief that Iran's going to get it anyway, and the United States will just have to contain it. But since we're not making any significant steps to force Iran to cooperate with verification measures, this is an extremely dangerous approach. The Center has been urging Congress to insist that these talks be stopped. These talks, the nuclear talks, are fatally flawed. They're not going to be salvaged with sanctions. They're not going to be salvaged with more diplomatic pressure on the Iranians. They have to be stopped. They're fatally flawed. We've conceded far too much. To insist that it comply with all existing UN Security Council resolutions, this may force Iran to withdraw from the talks. Good. A bad deal is going to be much worse than no deal here. The only responsible approach for the United States is to stop these nuclear talks, go back to the drawing board with our Western allies, and start over again. We've simply conceded too much. We've set up a situation where Iran will have the capability of producing multiple nuclear weapons worth of enriched uranium per year based on what has already been agreed to in the talks that is known. And I'm talking about concessions that we've heard about of allowing Iran to operate up to 8,000 nuclear centrifuges. So there's some significant steps that had to be taken by Congress right now. I wish Congress would say tomorrow, we're going to pass sanctions against Iran immediately until it complies with all relevant UN Security Council resolutions. There is a growing bipartisan movement in Congress to say enough. These talks are going to hurt our interests. They're going to cause international instability. We have to start over again.